All right, so you're prepping for an agricultural policy officer interview,
Uh-huh.
and you want to just knock it out of the park.
Right.
Well, we're taking a deep dive into all the insights from RoleCatcher,
Okay.
pulling from their career guides,
Yeah.
their interview guides,
Mm-hmm.
even some of their AI tools.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a cheat sheet designed just for you.
It's really interesting because they don't just focus on like what the job is, but they highlight what the interviewers are really looking for.
Exactly.
And that's where I think RoleCatcher gives people an edge.
It's like that secret weapon.
Yeah.
So let's start by really unpacking the role itself. An agricultural policy officer. I mean, it sounds like a lot more than just paperwork.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. It's like you're shaping the future of farming and food production.
Wow.
You're the one analyzing those policies. You're finding those areas for improvement. And then you're crafting those new initiatives.
So you're kind of like a detective
Yeah,
and an architect
that's a great way to put it.
and even a spokesperson for sustainable agriculture.
You got it.
Okay. Wow, that is dynamic.
It is.
So speaking of dynamic, let's get into some of the interview questions.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher has a whole arsenal
They do.
designed to really test your skills. So what's one that really comes to mind?
Well, one that seems to trip people up is how do you balance competing interests when you're actually developing policies?
Oh, that is good.
Because that gets to the heart of the challenges that agricultural policy officers face.
Yeah, because you've got the farmers.
Right.
You've got the consumers.
Exactly.
You've got environmental concerns.
Mm.
You've got economic realities.
Yep.
It's like a real balancing act.
It is.
So how do you even approach that question? Doesn't seem like there's a right answer.
Yeah, you're right. There's not like a canned response or anything. It's more about showing your thought process.
Okay.
So a good answer would acknowledge all those different stakeholders, articulate, the key considerations for each group, and then describe how you'd gather input and really facilitate balanced decision-making.
So being fair,
Yes.
being objective,
Uh-huh.
but also strategic,
Absolutely.
all at the same time.
All at once.
Now, let's say they want to dig a little deeper.
Okay.
What kind of follow-up questions could they ask?
Well, they might ask for like a concrete example. Like, can you describe a situation where you actually have to reconcile conflicting priorities in a policy decision?
Okay.
Or they might say something like, how would you handle a situation where one stakeholder group felt like their concerns weren't being addressed?
Oh, so they're really trying to get you to apply
Yes.
your experience
That's right.
or hypothetical scenarios
Yeah.
just to show that you can problem solve.
Exactly.
So that's where those critical thinking skills come in, for
Excellent.
being able to think on your feet
Yeah.
and apply that knowledge
Uh-huh.
to a real-world situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's another tough question?
All right. Well, another one that often comes up is, can you walk me through the process of actually crafting a new agricultural policy?
Oh, so they're asking for the playbook,
Yeah, like step by step.
step by step.
How do you make policy?
Okay, so what are some key points to hit on that one?
We'll definitely start by emphasizing research,
Okay.
data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation of any good policy.
Got it.
And then talk about engaging with stakeholders, gathering all those diverse perspectives, building consensus.
Good.
And don't forget to mention that policy development is iterative.
Right.
It's not a one and done. You incorporate feedback, you revise drafts, and ultimately you arrive at a well-crafted policy.
So you're not just throwing darts at a board.
Yep.
You're
Correct.
following an informed process.
You got it.
All right, so what are some follow-ups on that?
Let's see. Well, they may ask about what are some key considerations when you're gathering that input from stakeholders? Or they might ask, how would you ensure that the policy aligns with current scientific understanding?
Oh, so they really want to make sure you've got all your bases covered.
They do.
All right.
Like both the procedural and substantive aspects.
All right, let's do one more question.
Okay.
What else should we be prepared for?
How about this one? Can you describe a time when you had to work with government officials to advance an agricultural policy proposal?
Oh, so this is really about showcasing your communication skills,
Yeah,
your negotiation skills.
exactly.
You know how you navigate that political landscape
Mm-hmm.
to actually get things done?
That's it.
So how do you answer a question like that?
Well, I always recommend the STAR method.
Oh, right.
Situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
Choose an example that really highlights your success.
Yeah.
in working with those government officials. Lay out the situation clearly. What was your task? What actions did you take? And then what was the positive outcome?
So you're telling a story that shows you can get results, even in a tricky political environment.
That's right.
Okay, so what could they ask as a follow-up?
They might ask about, what were some of the challenges you faced? And how you overcame them?
Thanks.
Or how did you ensure that the proposal was well received and supported by those key decision makers?
So again, digging deeper into that strategy and consensus building.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to see that you can walk the walk.
Absolutely.
Now, I know RoleCatcher isn't just about questions. They also have those AI tools to help you craft the perfect answers.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So tell me about those.
Well, their AI can analyze job descriptions and suggest specific keywords, skills, experiences to really emphasize in your responses.
Oh, so it's tailoring your answers to each specific role.
Exactly.
Wow, that's helpful.
It is.
And it gets even better.
It does.
Because they have AI-powered feedback on your practice answers.
You can actually record yourself answering those questions.
Wow.
And the AI will analyze your delivery, the content, even your body language.
So it's like a virtual mock interview.
It is.
With personalized feedback.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's really helpful.
Okay, before we move on, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, that continuous learning.
Oh, that's so important.
Because agricultural policy is always evolving.
It is.
So staying up to date on industry trends, emerging technologies, global developments, it's essential.
It is.
And RoleCatcher really stresses that in their career guide.
They do.
They suggest, subscribing to those industry publications, following thought leaders, attending conferences.
Absolutely.
Just to keep your finger on the pulse.
You have to be a lifelong learner.
It's how you stay valuable in this field. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into preparing for an agricultural policy officer interview. We covered a lot, but there's still so much more to explore. So join us for part 2, where we'll delve into real-world scenarios, career progression, and how to use all of RoleCatcher's insights to really shine in your interview.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of agricultural policy officers.
All right, so we've tackled some tough interview questions, but let's switch gears a bit and talk about career progression. I mean, RoleCatcher gives some really interesting insights into how this career actually unfolds, from entry level all the way to senior positions.
Yeah, and what I really like is they use those real-world examples to illustrate each stage so you can see how your responsibilities might evolve and what it really takes to climb that ladder.
So you're saying there's a clear path for growth.
Definitely.
But it also requires that commitment.
Oh, for sure.
To continuous learning and development.
Yeah, it's not just about putting in the time. It's about expanding your skill set.
And RoleCatcher even highlights some specific certifications that can give you a leg up, like the Certified Agriculture Professional or the Certified Policy Analyst. And they also emphasize networking.
Oh, absolutely.
Building those relationships with people in the field.
That's key.
Okay, so speaking of networking, let's circle back to those interview questions for a second. One that often comes up and really tests your knowledge is, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the agricultural industry today? And how should policymakers address them?
Oh, that's a good one. And there's no single right answer there.
Right.
It's really about showing your awareness of the current landscape.
Yeah.
And your ability to analyze those complex issues.
It's like they're asking for a mini policy brief.
Kinda, yeah.
Right there in the interview.
Yeah.
So what are some challenges our listeners should be ready to discuss? I imagine climate change is a big one.
Oh, absolutely. Climate change is huge. But there are so many others. It really depends on the region or the country that you're focusing on. So you've got things like sustainability practices, food security, trade policies, the impact of technology. The list goes on and on.
So it's a lot to think about.
It is.
But the key is to choose a challenge.
Yes.
That you're genuinely interested in.
Absolutely.
And knowledgeable about.
Yeah, don't just give them a generic list. Show them you've really thought about this.
So it's not just about identifying the problems. It's also about having some ideas for solutions.
Exactly.
And be ready for those follow-up questions.
Oh, yeah, they'll dig deeper.
That dig deeper.
For sure.
Like, they might ask you to elaborate on the specific impacts of climate change on agriculture in a particular region. Or they might ask about innovative policy approaches to promoting sustainable farming practices.
Exactly.
So they really want to gauge how deeply you understand the issues.
They do.
And how well you can articulate those ideas.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay, let's talk about a different kind of challenge. the specific skills that RoleCatcher highlights as essential for this role, and that go beyond those obvious ones like communication and problem solving.
Right.
What else is there?
Well, one skill that might surprise people is systems analysis.
Systems analysis.
Yeah. Remember how we talked about that interconnected nature of agriculture? Well, systems analysis is all about understanding those complex relationships, the supply chains, environmental impacts, global trade patterns. You really need to be able to see that big picture and how all those pieces fit together.
You can't just focus on one narrow area. You got to understand how everything interacts.
Exactly.
Which makes sense in a field like agricultural policy.
Yeah, it's complex.
So let's say you're in the interview and they hit you with a question like, give us an example of a time you had to use systems thinking to address an agricultural issue. How do you approach that?
Well, it's all about choosing an example. That shows you can analyze a problem from multiple angles and consider the broader implications of those potential solutions.
Okay, so maybe you worked on a project that involved optimizing the distribution of agricultural resources, or maybe you helped develop a policy to mitigate the environmental impact of certain farming practices.
So you're connecting those dots.
Yeah.
You're showing that you can see the forest for the trees.
Exactly.
Now, before we move on to other key skills, I want to touch on something else RoleCatcher emphasizes: the importance of specialization within agricultural policy. They highlight different areas you can focus on as you gain experience, which is great for tailoring your career path to your interests and strengths.
Right, because it's not a one-size-fits-all career.
Right.
You might specialize in environmental sustainability, or food safety, trade policy, rural development, even agricultural technology.
So many options.
Yeah, each area requires a unique set of skills and knowledge, so it's worth exploring your passions and how they align with the industry.
Okay, so that's really empowering for our listener. It means you can carve out your own niche within this broad field.
But how does this specialization play out in the interview? Are there specific questions they might ask?
Oh, for sure. They might ask something like, what are your specific areas of interest within agricultural policy?
Right.
Or describe your experience working on projects related to, a specific area of specialization.
So it's your chance to showcase your knowledge
Yes.
and passion for that particular niche.
That's it.
So you've done your homework on the broad field of agricultural policy.
Yes.
But you've also delved deeper into a specific area that excites you.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go back to those AI-powered tools that RoleCatcher offers. I'm curious how they can help you tailor your answers, not just to specific roles, but also to those niche areas of specialization.
Well, their AI is pretty amazing. It can actually analyze those job descriptions and identify keywords, skills, experiences that are relevant to that particular specialization.
Okay.
So let's say you're applying for a role that focuses on environmental sustainability. The AI will suggest highlighting projects or experiences related to that area in your answers.
Oh, so it helps you refine your message.
Yeah.
And make sure you're hitting all the right notes.
Exactly.
That's so valuable.
It is.
Especially when you're trying to showcase your expertise in a specialized field.
It really takes the best work out of it.
Right.
And helps you stand out from the competition.
And don't forget about that AI-powered feedback on your practice answers.
Oh, right.
It can help you with your delivery, your content,
Yeah.
even your body language.
It's just having a personal coach.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to another crucial aspect of this career: building relationships with government officials. It's one thing to understand policy,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to navigate that political landscape.
It is.
So what insights does RoleCatcher offer there?
Well, they emphasize that building those relationships is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's about attending industry events, joining professional organizations, actively engaging with those government officials
Yeah.
in a meaningful way.
So it's not just about schmoozing
Nope,
or lobbying.
not at all.
It's about fostering genuine connections
Yeah,
and working together towards those shared goals.
that's the key.
So how does this translate into interview prep? What questions should we expect?
Well, a common one is, can you describe a time when you had to work with government officials to achieve a specific outcome?
Okay.
This is your chance to really showcase your diplomacy, your communication skills, your ability to navigate those complex political waters.
So again, remember the STAR method.
Yes, use it.
Use it to structure your answer
Right.
and highlight your success.
Absolutely.
So you're not just crafting good policies, you can also work effectively with those empowered to implement them.
Exactly.
You're bridging that gap between theory and practice.
That's it.
And remember, interviewers aren't just looking for success stories.
No, they're not.
They also want to know how you handle challenges and setbacks.
For sure.
So be prepared to discuss a time when you faced resistance from those officials or encountered obstacles in that policy process.
Yeah, show them your resilience, your problem-solving skills, your ability to adapt to those changing circumstances.
So they want to see that you can handle the heat.
Yeah,
You're not afraid of a challenge.
that's right.
You're the kind of person who can navigate that complexity and emerge victorious.
That's a great way to put it.
We are back for the final part of our deep dive into becoming an agricultural policy officer.
It's been a journey.
It has. We've talked about those tricky interview questions, explored career paths,
Yeah.
even dug into those specialized skills you need.
And don't forget those AI tools from RoleCatcher.
Oh, right. It's like having a secret weapon.
Uh,
But before we wrap things up, I want to touch on something RoleCatcher points out that we don't always hear about. The potential downsides of this career.
oh, yeah, it's not all perfect.
Right. It's not all sunshine and roses.
RoleCatcher actually acknowledges that this job can be demanding,
Okay.
long hours, sometimes intense pressure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They even mention those bureaucratic hurdles and the reality that you might not always see the results of all your hard work.
So it's about setting those realistic expectations.
Definitely.
It's not always going to be easy.
No, but here's the thing. They balance those downsides with the immense rewards that come with this career.
Okay, so what are some of those rewards?
Well, I mean, think about it. You have the chance to make a real difference in a vital industry.
Right, like you're shaping policies that impact food production, sustainability.
Exactly.
You're working with all kinds of stakeholders.
Those are powerful motivators.
It's about knowing you're contributing to something bigger than yourself.
You're working towards that greater good.
And those rewards, they often show up in the work environment too.
Oh, absolutely.
RoleCatcher describes it as intellectually stimulating,
Yeah.
collaborative.
Uh-huh.
You're surrounded by passionate people, dedicated to making a difference.
It's a great atmosphere.
It sounds like a place where you're constantly learning.
Yeah.
You're challenged, but also supported.
You got it.
Which brings us to another key point from RoleCatcher, the importance of continuous learning
Oh, that's huge.
and professional
You
development.
can't just coast in this field.
Right. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
For sure.
Always learning new skills.
Because the industry is constantly changing.
And RoleCatcher gives some great advice on how to do that.
Oh, yeah. What do they say?
Well, they recommend things like attending conferences and workshops,
Okay.
joining professional organizations,
Yeah.
subscribing to industry publications, even pursuing advanced degrees or certifications.
So it's about being proactive.
Yeah, seeking out those opportunities for growth.
Right. And investing in your own development.
And let's not forget about mentors. RoleCatcher really highlights their importance,
Oh, yeah. Having a mentor can make a huge difference.
especially early in your career.
Definitely.
Someone to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Get advice.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from their experience.
It's invaluable.
And as you move up in your career, think about becoming a mentor yourself.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's about paying it forward.
Right. Fostering that sense of community.
Supporting the next generation of leaders.
Exactly.
So to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
remember that preparing for this interview, it's not just about rehearsing answers.
Right.
It's about understanding the role,
Yeah.
the industry,
Uh-huh.
your own motivations.
Why do you want to do this work?
Show your passion,
Your
your
knowledge
commitment,
to making a difference in a field that really matters.
because this field really does matter.
It
And remember, the interview is just one step.
it is.
Continuous learning,
Networking.
building those relationships.
Those are the keys to success.
So to our listener, as you start this journey, be curious,
Be adaptable
be passionate.
and never stop learning.
The future of agriculture needs you.
That's a great way to put it.
And on that note, we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of careers.